My friend Anna and I were bored one weekend and decided to go to a popular beach to take some pictures and just mess around. So we took pictures and had a really lovely day. Then, on the way back, we were starving, so we decided to stop at McDonald's in the beach town. This town is really famous and nice. All the celebrities live there, and it's beautiful. There's also a super famous restaurant right off the highway on the beach known for celebrities and rich people going. Interestingly, this McDonald's was directly across the street from the restaurant. Since many famous people go to this restaurant and it's on a pretty busy road, most of them have drivers that take them, usually in big black Escalades. The drivers would usually hang out in the parking lot of that McDonald's while their bosses ate across the street. Anna and I didn't know this at the time. We just wanted a McFlurry. So, we go to McDonald's, and right when we get out of the car, she starts acting really weird. She triple checks that the car doors are locked and grabs her fancy camera to bring inside. I ask her what's up, and she says there is a group of guys, the drivers, standing in front of McDonald's smoking and staring at us, and it was giving her the creeps. I'm a pretty chill and trusting person, so I don't think much of it. It's a busy place in a super nice town. I'm not worried. We go in, and there are a few other people about our age in there. We get our food and sit at a table to eat. One of the drivers comes in and sits a few booths down with his back to the wall, right where he can see us. My back is to him, but Anna gets really creeped out and wants to leave. This guy isn't eating or anything, he's just staring at us. Again, this is a pretty crowded McDonald's in one of the nicest towns in Southern California, so I feel pretty safe. Still, Anna was freaked out, so I agree to go, but I just have to run to the bathroom first. It was one of those McDonald's where the counter and main dining room were in one big room, and then there was a sort of hallway off to the side of the counter with more seating and the bathroom at the end, way in the back. There was also a door going outside right next to the bathrooms. The bathroom has only 2 stalls. I just walked into the first stall, not really paying attention to whether or not anyone else was in there. So I'm in there doing my thing, and then I hear the door open, and I hear Anna call my name. At this point, I'm very confused since she's supposed to be watching our stuff, and I'm like, "Yeah? What's up?" She asks, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, just peeing," I reply. She was like, "Oh, okay," and just stands there in the doorway. After a second, I hear her leave, and I'm thinking, that's very weird. So I walk out of the bathroom and see her waiting by the door with all of our stuff in her hands. I ask her what's going on and why she came into the bathroom, and she just looks at me really panicky and is like, "We need to leave right now." At this point, I'm still not afraid, just confused. We rush out to the car and she starts telling me what happened. Turns out when I walked into the bathroom, the creepy driver followed me in a little while after. I don't remember hearing him come in, but maybe I did, and just assumed someone had either been in the stall next to me and was leaving, or had just come to check their makeup or something. I'll be honest, I really wasn't paying attention. I know for sure I wasn't aware that anyone had entered the stall next to me because he didn't close the stall door when he came in. She was on her phone, so she didn't see him follow me either. A young guy noticed it and went up to my friend, asking if we knew the driver. Frantic, she told him we did not, and ran to check on me. He was in the stall next to me with the stall door open. It was the large handicap stall, not making a sound. She came in and didn't see him, so she called my name to make sure I was still alive, and he rushed out of the stall past her. She was in shock and didn't know what to do other than gather our things and prepare to run. When we went to her car, he was sitting in his big black car with tinted windows next to us, still staring. We sped off, and when I got the story, we called the McDonald's to let them know what happened. They didn't really care. And then we called the non-emergency sheriff line to report it as well, which was closed. Eventually, my mom went full-on mama bear and threatened to blast it all over social media that they didn't take my report seriously, and got a hold of someone at corporate from there. They checked their cameras and saw the guy follow me in. A police report was made, so hopefully this never happens to anyone else again. Thank God nothing happened, but it was really scary. The guy was sitting in his car staring at us when we left. Who knows what he was planning on doing? This occurred a few years ago when my folks were driving themselves, me and my siblings on a road trip from Texas to New York to visit family. At one point, which I believe was our first stop on the trip, we ended up at a McDonald's for either lunch or dinner. We all ordered what we wanted, and my mom, siblings, and I all went to go pick a table while my dad waited at the counter for our food. A table or two across from us, I noticed an old man sitting by himself. I remember the surrounding tables were empty, so he was just the first thing I noticed, and evidently would keep my attention until we left. I don't remember if he had any food, but he was just minding his own business. A few times he looked around and at our table, kind of just in our general direction it seemed. Eventually my dad came with the food and sat down with the rest of us. We all began to unpack our food and poke straws into our drinks. We were making casual conversation as we did so. It was at this point we all turned our attention a few tables away to the old man after hearing what sounded like loud muttering. He was saying something unintelligible, staring at us, his eyes as wide as could be. It no longer appeared he was looking in our general direction but right at us, speaking what sounded like angry gibberish between gritted teeth. We all had stopped talking at this point and tried not to stare back, awkwardly taking hesitant bites of our food. After a minute, one of us attempted to strike up a conversation again, but it was definitely hard to, with this old guy making a scene that was obviously directed at us. It seemed after a couple of minutes of this weird behavior, the old guy had quieted down some. He was still talking, but it was quiet, and to himself. One of my siblings asked if they could have some ketchup for their fries. My mom didn't really want them going and getting it by themselves because she was super protective of her children, especially the younger ones. So my mom stood and walked over to where the ketchup was. The old man watched my mom go get the ketchup the entire time, his eyes wide and staring again. He was quiet until she started to come back. The closer she got to our table, the louder his muttering got again. He sounded livid now and very intimidating. At that moment, I worried something was about to happen. Now, my dad had definitely had enough. He got up and walked over to the old man's table and said, "Do we have a problem?" As calm but as stern as he could. I think he said some other things to him as well, but much quieter as to not attract other people. The old man was still wide-eyed, and now his arms and legs were twitching. After a solid moment, the old man shook his head no. After my dad gave him a stern look in the eye, as to make sure the guy knew he wasn't playing games, he returned to our table. We were told to hurry up and finish eating because my dad wanted to leave now. The atmosphere felt tense now. No one conversed after this point. Another 2 or 3 minutes passed, and the old man started talking again, just as loud and as angry as before. My dad locked eyes with him with a very serious look on his face, which effectively quieted the guy down once more. You could tell that it was almost like he couldn't help it, and throughout the next few minutes, he was struggling to keep his voice to himself and his eyes to his own table. For some reason, it seemed as though this guy was worked up at the fact that we were sitting in the restaurant. We finished eating and began cleaning up our trash. As we did so, people were entering and exiting the establishment. A couple of people with children got their food and went to the kids' play area. The old guy started to leave. He started to walk away from his table towards the exit, and I know we all breathed a sigh of relief. He was still muttering to himself and twitching angrily, but at least he was leaving us alone now. We thought that was it, but it wasn't. My dad was clearly in a bad mood now and rushing us all so we could get back on the road. No one knew what that guy's problem was, or if he had been working up to doing something violent. I know that some people have issues, especially older folks, but what else were we to think? He had just seemed so pissed off for no apparent reason, which was aimed at us. It was alarming. My mom was hurrying us along to finish cleaning up our places at the table now, but we were all too busy watching the strange old guy leave. That was when the old guy decided to enter the children's play area. My dad had been watching him as he walked away, perhaps for this exact reason. When my father saw him enter the kids' play area, he sprang out of his chair and sprinted over to the door of the room. I couldn't see exactly what happened, but I think the old man noticed my dad had followed him and decided to take the exit that was inside the play area. We were done getting our stuff thrown away now. I think before we left, my dad made a point to mention this guy to the employees at the counter. Maybe he wouldn't have before, but why had he gone into that room? We took our leave and didn't come across the guy again. No sign of him outside anywhere. No one but me seems to remember this incident now, or at least it's just never been brought up since. But it was definitely a scary experience. I'm really not sure if this guy was mentally unstable, on drugs, or something else. Perhaps just problems with old age. My dad doesn't usually make it his business to care either. This guy could have easily become violent though, and who knows what he would have done if my dad hadn't seen him go into the kids' play area. I was 19 years old at the time. I had a really good opportunity to go to college, but things fell through a couple of months into it, and basically, I wasn't allowed back at that college. I'm not going to get into the details, but I found myself stuck. I was living at home with my parents and working at McDonald's most of the time. I was really disappointed in myself, especially because I didn't have anyone else to blame but myself. I seemed to be your typical college dropout that ended up working at fast food. While I was working there, I had a couple of really strange experiences. The first one happened like this. There was this really creepy customer. He was an old man and he just seemed like the most insane individual ever. You just have to think of the physical embodiment of Florida man. He always wore this bathroom robe with a stained white t-shirt underneath. As for his shoes, he had these really old Nikes that seemed like they had been completely covered in mud and never washed. Everywhere he stepped, there was some residue coming off of his shoes. This guy came into McDonald's 4 or 5 times a day for as long as I worked there. I never personally had any horrible experiences with him. It wasn't like he was this unruly customer. He always asked for extra ketchup, but it's not like that was a crime or anything. The story is weird because I remember talking about him with some of my coworkers. I had one friend there that I became rather close with. I remember talking with her about this creepy guy that just came into McDonald's all the time wearing his pajamas. When you work with the public, there are so many people and faces that you see all the time, and none of them mean anything. It's just another customer. But when you have someone like this, it almost makes the job a little bit more bearable, as weird as that might sound. A little bit more consistency to the job. Plus, making jokes about someone like that was kind of fun. But there was one day when the jokes weren't funny anymore because he stopped coming in. We couldn't find out why either. I mean, when you see someone multiple times a day every day for months on end, you get a little surprised when they stop showing up. It all just seemed, I don't know, unusual. I remember talking to my friend about it. Neither of us could imagine why he stopped. I remember getting a phone call at 2 in the morning that night, though. I guess my friend had gotten curious and looked around online. She's a bit of an insomniac. I guess he had been arrested on multiple drug charges. She had found a picture of him in the public database for our county's police department. In the mugshot, he was wearing that exact same bathroom robe that we always saw him wearing. That was interesting. Really weird to think that someone I saw and interacted with multiple times a day was an actual drug dealer. But I guess that was that. My other experience working at McDonald's was really bad. Not going to lie to you, it really freaked me out and made me question humanity. So it happened like this. I was working the graveyard shift. It must have been around 12 a.m., and we didn't have any customers. We already cleaned all the machines as much as we could, and there really wasn't anything to do. We live in a smaller community, so there weren't too many people coming in to eat at such a late hour. We had a few here and there, but we were mostly just sitting around, particularly slow this night. I remember going over to check the garbage cans for the other side of the store. Occasionally, we would forget to empty that garbage pail. It was directly behind a booth and out of sight from the area we normally work in. I remember going over there and there were 2 big bags of garbage that needed to be taken out. They were too heavy to take out at the same time, so I did what any sane person would do. I carried one out at a time. I remember bringing the first one. I threw it into the dumpster and I remember hurting my back a little when I did it. I went for a little bit of a theatrical throw and really felt it there. I went back into the store to get the second bag of garbage, and I made my way outside. I got about 10 feet away from the dumpster when I saw something that shocked me. I dropped the bag of garbage. I couldn't believe my eyes. There was a mutilated puppy. Its entire snout had been cut off. I wasn't sure if it was alive or not. It wasn't moving or anything. I took a step closer to try to see a little bit more, and I just felt my heart drop into my stomach. It was the most horrifying thing I've ever seen in person. It was definitely dead. It was leaning up against the dumpster, and it was just a horrifying thing to see. I ran back inside and asked my coworkers what we should do. We decided to call the police, but they didn't really help much. We were really freaked out at who could have possibly done this and why they would put the puppy there of all places. The part that still freaks me out is that whoever had done this had been waiting for me to go back inside the building, and in the few seconds before I came back out, they put it right next to the dumpster. I figured they must have been watching me. I didn't know what else to think about it, though. Our McDonald's didn't have outside cameras other than at the drive-thru, so there was no hope of trying to identify the person who did this.